Hi, this is Tony. Welcome to another episode of Talk Tonic. We're here at National Restaurant Association 2024, and I'm pleased to be joined by Jacob MacKinnon from 7Shifts. How you doing?
Good, great.
Good, nice to meet
Thanks
you.
for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely excited to have you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and your role with 7Shifts.
So I've been at 7Shifts for just over 2 years now. I am our first solutions consultant on the pre-sale side. So kind of interface between our product team and our customers, communicating two ways. How can our customers use our product? How can our product better serve our customers? And I work with all sizes of restaurant groups, small, medium business, up to our enterprise and mid-market customers as well.
Awesome, very cool. Really curious kind of the origins of 7Shifts. If you could maybe help me understand kind of where you guys came from, and I'd love to hear that.
We're a Canadian company. We're actually based out of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. So our founder, Jordan, was working in his dad's sub shop. So he was actually working in the industry.
That's cool.
And realized there was a need. We have this lovely little picture of Jordan that kind of circulates around our kind of internal teams, and it's him with a paper schedule posted on the wall, and everyone likes to say, that's when it started. And he saw that there was a need. We want to streamline being able to schedule, swap shifts. It doesn't have to be everything on pen and paper these days, and he kind of took it from there. He's a developer by trade, so started that, and then 7Shifts was born.
Then here you are.
Exactly.
That's exciting. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love those stories, like, kind of where it all starts from, right? Those are always interesting. You mentioned a couple things related to scheduling and stuff like that. One of the things that really curious to know more about is, obviously in restaurants, team environments. Tell me a little bit about how 7Shifts kind of really helps restaurant teams within a restaurant really operate efficiently. I'm curious.
We are really focused on making that store level experience for the employee, for your shift manager, for your general manager, seamless. So that's kind of the holistic vision, is really making sure that everyone at every level of operation enjoys what we have and enjoys their job as it's powered by technology, by 7Shifts.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, obviously, like we were talking about team service, everybody being on the same page and working together. That's exciting. And so scheduling. Obviously, 7Shifts has a lot of different features.
For sure.
I mean, we just finished the integration, which is awesome.
Yeah.
We looked at a lot of different things, but scheduling obviously is a big one. If you wouldn't mind maybe diving in some details about how that's, how it's either configured, how it's set up, and just some of the benefits and what separates you guys with the with your scheduling features.
Keeping, again, all of those kind of levels of employee right up to the general manager in mind, we provide a solution that just is very user-friendly. Our user interface, super clean. An employee, even someone who is not very tech forward, someone who maybe doesn't even have a smartphone, can pick up the app right out of their pocket on their phone or, on our website. And they can very easily, you see your shifts. You can get a notification, you can get an email, you can trade shifts between employees. You're able to see, who am I working with that day? Maybe if I need to call out, we have an automated button that connects you directly to the manager that's on duty there. Your time off, your availability. That was a big pain point for the management teams when we were first launching 7Shifts was, well, if I'm doing it on paper and pen and someone wants to call in and say, hey, I'm swapping my shift with another coworker, well, then I'm scratching it off the schedule. Who knows?
Yeah, it's all manual, right? Everybody's doing that manually. Yeah.
Exactly. So really just providing a super easy to use tool. And then when you layer on some of our scheduling adjunct features, our budgeting tools, writing a schedule that keeps employees happy because you're in their availability and you're considerate of their time off is one thing. You also then need to consider your budgets, your labor targets. We integrate with Tonic, we integrate with your POS. We're pulling in those sales so we can run those projections and say, hey, you wrote a really great schedule, but maybe you're a little bit over, maybe you're a little bit under for your labor target.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's cool. So it kind of helps you out. So like based off all your schedules, so is it like, all the historical schedules, like it captures all that data and then kind of gives you an idea of an optimum schedule?
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
We call that optimal labor, and that's exactly it. We're bringing in all of that data. We are forecasting your projections. We kind of run it all through machine learning there. We're learning your scheduling habits. And then we're able to take that one step further and say, well, here's our recommended schedule. Here's how you should optimize your labor distribution throughout the day.
That's cool.
And take that out of the hands of a busy manager who is busy developing their employees, talking to guests and tables, and less time in the back office.
Yeah.
fiddling around with a paper schedule or Excel, and more time being on the floor and, really hitting it where it counts.
That's great. That's great. I know there's a couple other features that as part of the integration that you guys support. One of them that was always interesting to me was the tip pooling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you guys do tip pooling.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's one of the kind of our suite of pay products there, which is
Uh-huh.
our tip pooling, our tip payouts, our payroll, and our tip pooling is a really great feature because what it actually does is it's taking all of that data, so your sales, your labor, your time punches, the tips, obviously, you bring it into 7Shifts, and we'll do all of those calculations for you. So if you're sharing amongst the team, if your servers or bartenders are tipping out, these complicated a certain percent of sales to different staff members, most people today, you're having that managed through a second Excel spreadsheet. So now we've eliminated your schedule, and now we're eliminating the Excel spreadsheet that you're using for tip pooling, and we'll just automate that whole process for you and
That's great.
really just make it easy. Again, taking that manager out of the back office, fiddling around with spreadsheets and letting them focus on what counts.
That's perfect, And one thing I have to say too, I have to give you guys your flowers, especially the technical team. So we just finished an integration, and the integration process was so smooth. Everything was in line, and the communication was fantastic. There was just a lot of things that were really well described for us. So the integration side with you guys in Tonic was seamless. And we already have, I think, 9 customers using
Yeah.
7Shifts with Tonic, which is fantastic. We got a lot more for sure on the way, but I have to give you and the team flowers for that because there was so much detail that was put in that process, and it was also really streamlined, and we got it done, I think, in it's like 3 weeks, something like that, which
Yeah.
usually
Fantastic.
when
Yeah.
you do integrations, it's much more than 3 weeks.
They have a big focus on the idea of the platform and the open API. We really want to make it easy for partners like Tonic to come in and connect and say, hey, we want to serve our customers together. And then they're, like you said, they're very thorough and stringent because they also want to make sure that, we're dealing with, like you said, data like tips. We want to make sure that that's accurate. Employees want to be paid correctly. There's nothing that, sours an employee faster than getting something wrong on their paycheck, whether it's labor or tips. So it's a very important part of, the 7Shifts process as well.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that reflects to just you guys and your values and on how you build the product, because you mentioned it as we were going through there. We were validating different, making sure tips were accurate, making sure all the data is absolutely accurate, because if you don't have accurate data, then what's your data, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Tell me a little bit about 7Shifts and Payroll. I'm really curious. I'm really curious to see what kind of features you have there.
Yeah, so very, very exciting. Recently launched, so just in the last year or so, we launched our own payroll product.
Okay.
Specific for restaurants. There's a lot of great payroll companies out there, but some of them miss the nuances of the features that restaurant operators want. And above and beyond all the little like restaurant specific features is the need for it to be very simple. The need for it to be very simple and streamlined. Same thing, on the theme of I am an HR or a payroll administrator, a general manager. No one in the restaurant space has time to sit down and take hours and hours and hours to
Oh, absolutely.
run a payroll on a weekly or bi-weekly basis.
Yeah.
So we really wanted to make restaurant-specific payroll that's already in the system you're using to manage your time tracking and labor, your tips, and all of your pay data. And we want to go ahead and make that within just a few clicks. Well, now your employees are paid, and you can get back to doing what you want to do again on the floor, engaging guests.
Just makes it easier across the board for
Exactly.
payroll, and that's important. So you mentioned it earlier. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but labor costs. Tell me about some of the things that you guys do to really help restaurants keep those in check, because obviously that's, keeping those in check is important. So tell me a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
I like to kind of break it into 2 parts. There's the proactive and the reactive.
Yeah.
So on the proactive side is where we kind of touched on a little bit. So we have, great, fantastic integrations that bring in that near real time, if not real time, sales and labor data. And we're bringing that into create projections. We're allowing you to set labor targets. We're allowing you to see as you build the schedule, we are live costing your schedule. So you add a shift to the schedule, you see how much that's going to cost you. You can weigh it against your projections, and you can actually see your labor start to build up as you are creating that schedule. So that's very
Oh, that's cool.
proactive.
So there's some forecasting in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's great.
So we'll take the forecasting off your hands. We'll be able to project that sales data into the future. So when you're writing, the schedule for 2-3 weeks out, you say, what are my sales going to be? How many people do I need on the schedule to, optimally manage my sales volume coming in?
Yeah, I love the reactive and proactive,
Yeah,
like separation between, because it helps you categorize, right? Like it helps
exactly.
you categorize those two things, and that's a big thing, forecasting, in anything, and
Yeah.
that you guys do that and focus on that is super important.
Yeah. And then because great, you get ahead of it, you write this
Yeah,
really labor optimal schedule. But if there's anything I know from, a decade of working in restaurants and now working in hospitality tech, is that you can write the most beautiful schedule and it is never going to go that way come the day.
no,
Everything
yeah,
happens,
yeah.
guests call out, sick calls,
Sick
shift
calls, yeah.
swaps, absolutely. And so then we also have that reactive suite as well. So again, we have that live labor. So a manager, they pull out their phone, and when I'm busy on a shift, I'm not going to a back office computer to check the labor. I pull out my phone and it tells me, oh, you're trending high, you're trending low, you're behind your projections. Oh, maybe you need to ask someone to stay late because you're busier than expected.
Yeah,
Maybe you
yeah.
send someone home early because you're not very busy, your labor's very high, and I can check that all in real time.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So we're here at NRA, National
Yeah.
Restaurant Association, obviously. Crazy. There's massive amounts of traffic down there, foot traffic everywhere. Um, Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing here. Just curious, obviously it's a big show, a lot of things here. What do you see trend-wise that's, specific to 7 Shifts that you've started to notice here?
One of the big trends that we're seeing from, not only people who play in our space, competitors, but also partners, as well as, even in our own product suite too, is a lot more of that shift to kind of an all-in-one mentality. Budgets have always been tight, margins have always been slim in the hospitality
Oh yeah. Oh
space.
yeah.
And so the more bang for your buck you can get, the more you can get out of one product, the better,
Hmm.
obviously. And it's great. I think that being able to put multiple things like 7 Shifts, we again have your labor management. We can put your payroll. We can put your tip and pay data all in one place.
Yeah.
I think what's extremely important and what we need to kind of be careful of as we walk that line is you want to make sure that the products you have in your suite make sense and play well together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All in one for the sense of just saying and advertising that you're an all in one solution when maybe you do really well in one space and the other parts of your tool are not up to snuff and are not high quality is not going to do anyone any favors.
For sure. For
We
sure.
want to
Yeah.
make sure that all of our solution works very well together. It's all tied together by a very seamless user interface. It only takes a few clicks to go from step A to step B to process your payroll, to run all of your tips. And that's what we've really focused on as we continue to expand into new spaces of the hospitality and the
Yeah.
restaurant
That's great.
tech space. Yeah.
That's great, and speaking of the trends, I'd love to learn because I mean the feature set that you have now, the software suite, I mean it's fantastic and it really provides so much value to restaurants. But around innovation,
Yeah.
obviously there's innovation all over the place in the world of technology. I'd love
Yeah.
to hear a little bit about some of the things that you've done specific to 7 Shifts, where you've really innovated something kind of new into the product, but then also, what the future is, what you're looking at kind of, trends wise, and how you plan to innovate 7 Shifts even further in the future.
Absolutely, yeah. So recently, that's definitely been our big pay product focus.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have the payroll we chatted about, we have the integrated tip pooling we chatted
Yep.
about. Another one that we just released is direct to employee bank accounts tip payouts. So instead of having to go through a third-party pay card, you might have transaction fees, you might be limited to a certain ATM network, your money's not in your own bank account, direct to an employee's actual debit account, we can pay out their tips directly.
That is huge. That is huge because I mean, you obviously know that you guys are the experts for sure.
Hmm.
But that most restaurant employees, their tips is their livelihood, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And so just so I understand correctly, 100%. So when they finished up with the shift and they go to clock out, they're able to get those credit tips immediately.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow,
We
that's yeah,
call it daily tip payouts. The shift is done. The tips are calculated because 7 Shifts again is managing those calculations. All a manager needs to do is, I think it's 2 or 3 clicks, and those tips within minutes are in employee bank accounts. And
that's
then
critical.
you don't have to wait for it to come on payroll. You don't have to wait for 2 weeks to get what is sometimes, upwards of 90% of your earnings in tips, depending where you are, what state, you might be on a sub minimum wage and
Hmm.
relying on those tips, and getting them daily is important,
Oh yeah,
and getting them right into your bank account just makes them easy to use. It's my money. I want to use it the way I worked very hard to
yeah,
earn this money. I want to use
absolutely. I
it
want to, yeah.
the way I want to use it. And so it's important that it's in my bank account
I love
also.
that. Like I wish I had 7 shifts when I was, a million years ago when I was
Oh
a
yeah,
bartender,
I agree. Yeah,
because back obviously cash now, right? Not much cash floating around
yeah,
in that world, but the tips having to wait 2 weeks or even like 3-4 days, right?
yeah.
And again, back to your point about, they want to use it how they want to use it. And a lot of times they need to, use it to pay bills and things like that, right? So getting that money right after a shift is just critical. That makes me feel good as a former restaurant employee,
Yes, yeah,
knowing that, it makes me a little like bummed out because, I wish I
yeah.
had that when
Missed
I was
out on
doing
it.
it,
Yeah.
so it was a few years too late, but, well, also what I really want to hear about, obviously you have a large customer base. Tell me a little bit about some success stories, specific customer or group of customers, just recent things that you've seen, whether it's feedback, anything like that you're hearing. We'd love to hear about some just overall successes from your customers.
So again, we serve customers of all sizes, right?
Yep.
So your one location, mom and pop shop, all the way up to your enterprise, your mid-market brands too. So most notably one that our team has been working very closely with, the Human Bean. So, very
Oh
popular
yeah. Oh
coffee
yeah.
shop and roastery brand. And they were actually doing everything with pen and paper and Excel schedules before moving on to 7 Shifts.
Mm.
And so we did some digging and some data for them, and we found that across their brand, after moving on to 7 Shifts, we were actually helping them automate and manage. It was 2,000, just over 2,000 employee requests. So that's time off, availability, shift swaps
Wow.
a week.
Wow.
And
That's,
so
yeah.
you can imagine every manager's at the store, they're getting calls, they're crossing things off manually across all of their stores. And now we're helping them automate this and streamline that. You can imagine the time savings, the headaches, the
Oh,
people not
huge.
showing up
Yeah.
that we've been able to solve there. And so
Wow.
that's just an example of like one of our larger brands, finding that success. And
That's excellent.
yeah,
I love hearing about that, especially when you have all this manual process. And, like you were saying earlier, what I loved what you said was when you were talking about taking folks out of that back office, right?
hmm
And taking the restaurateurs out of that back office so they can start helping their employees, training their employees, kind of getting their employees up to speed. But then again, what you just mentioned, this manual process a week with that amount of things they were having to do, knowing that, there's something out there that can help them. So I love hearing that.
we're finding even large brands too. And these are brands that, we have professional teams dedicated to labor and managing, and you have, industry experts who are working to keep those labor in check. And we even find that, you implement 7 Shifts, and within a few months, we're seeing these large brands actually cut labor. We're reducing that by 8%, 7%, 10% sometimes. So we're bringing, your labor costs down maybe in the front of house 22%, and now it's 21. And when you multiply
Oh
that
yeah.
across hundreds of stores or weeks and months, that's thousands and thousands of dollars in savings
Wow.
that some of these brands are reporting, and the data's there.
Oh, it's
So
there. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. That's impressive. Well, Jacob, thank you so much.
thank you for
Thank you
having
so
me. It's
much.
been a pleasure.
No, it's
Yeah.
been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for watching Talk Tonic. Be sure to check us out in the future. Again, NRA 2024. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks.